Hello.
What's up, Jake?
What's up, Josh?
Man, it's funny that we're recording now. We were talking for an hour before this podcast. We're like, damn, we should just record right as soon as we hop on.
Yeah.
But I'm sure
A lot
not
of
every
business stuff, and I feel like people are interested in that. Like we've gotten good comments on that.
Yeah, I think we haven't posted a check-in quote unquote episode on YouTube yet, but those are episodes where Jake and I pretty much catch up on all things related to our apps, business stuff, and then jujitsu. And then the jujitsu ones are kind of like sporadic rabbit hole ideas or what's going on in our training and stuff. And yeah, the listeners have responded well to those. So yeah, we'll see. But today we'll save all that business stuff and talking about traveling and nonprofits for just ourselves and give the audience just front headlock.
Front headlock. I've come out with a couple videos on the front headlock recently, and yeah, I've dove pretty deep into it, so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding. So yeah, I'm interested to
Okay.
hear your questions on it.
Yeah, yeah. Front headlock was probably an area I just barely ever practiced until maybe, I don't know, 3 to 6 months ago. I started paying attention more to it and wanted to get better at attacking from front headlock and defending. Um, So yeah, I mean, we actually just had a practice session today with Andres at the gym, doing a lot of eco stuff, focusing on the front headlock. The first game was around like maintaining the front
Mhm.
headlock and keeping them on their hands, and we weren't allowed to connect our hands. And the second game was we start with connected hands and then try to break the opponent down to their back using like Darce, Anaconda, guillotine threats. And I have a lot of trouble with the finish, but maybe we start from the beginning, like the control aspect. What do you think are the major battles for the attacker and defender from the front headlock position?
I'm curious because I've seen Greg do this too, where you don't connect your hands when you're trying to maintain the position. Is there a reason behind that?
Yeah, it was interesting. It forced it. So every constraint is supposed to like exaggerate certain opportunities. And at least as I understand this constraint led approach. And so the constraint of not being able to connect your hands forced me to play around with different configurations of chin strap, that tricep grip. The double tricep grip is something that I never really played with until now
Hmm.
because I couldn't connect my hands. So I never, maybe that helped me, quote unquote, self organize or discover that
Right.
way to control. Um,
You have to be more dynamic with your grips, kind of.
Yeah, switching a lot of grips. Maybe that's
Mm.
what it is. It's helping you find the opportunities to switch grips while maintaining control instead of just statically like trying to hold this grip.
Right.
Yeah.
That
It's
makes
my
sense.
best guess at it.
No, it makes sense. Um, cool. So how do you go about maintaining control, breaking people down to their hands? Like, what's your current approach to it?
Yeah, current approach was usually I start with that chin strap and that what do you call that grip? The one over the tricep?
I call it like a overhook, like
Overhook.
because it's kind of like an overhook, and then like if you come in like above their bicep,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, like over their bicep, that would be like an underhook.
Right, right. If you're going in
Yeah, like
under.
a
So
cow
like a cow
catcher kind
catcher.
of grip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I start with that overhook on their tricep and the chin strap. And then I've been focusing on putting my weight like kind of on their head.
Hmm.
And then I do a lot of pulling them down to try to break them down to that elbow or even to a shoulder if I could. Um, and today actually, one of our black belts, Jake, he was telling us you can also push them and try to break them down going backwards. And I haven't messed with that much. So I've pretty much had this one direction of pulling them to distract them, to force them to react. And then hopefully while they're reacting, I could find opportunities to advance. It's almost like a distraction thing, like keep them
Right.
distracted. But that's pretty much all I do. And if they start to fight the grip, then I just try to go to the chin strap with the other arm and just play from there, I guess.
Gotcha. Cool. So let me share my screen. Just some things I've been working on. So I made a little folder here for our podcast about front headlock and um yeah. Okay. So from what I've seen, like, do you see how make this bigger? Like basically when you're pulling, you can either pull to the side of the chin strap and try and break them down this way, or you can pull to the side of your overhook and try and break them down this way. And I think this is just me kind of like observing, but from what I've seen, when you're breaking them down to their hands, it makes sense to pull them to the side of your overhook. So, like, you can see here, when Gordon pulls, he's sagging his weight down to the side of the overhook, and he's trying to get that hand down to the mat like that. So I
Yeah.
think this does a really good job of breaking them down when they're not on their hands, um, and they're, like, standing. So, I think there's more examples of this. Oh, this is kind of just, like, kinda what you were talking about of going backwards, but, it's kind of the same thing, like, the off balances come on the side of your overhook, if that
Mm,
makes sense. So, you can see she starts, like, hooking the leg on the side of her overhook to, like, break her down, and then go behind. So,
yeah.
I think, like, when they're standing, like, the pull is to the side of your overhook to, like, break them down, break them down, break them down. But then, like, once they get, like, broken down to their hands, I think you can start to pull more towards your chin strap side. Um, yeah. So I think the direction is pretty important, that you're pulling.
Yeah. How come people don't pull to the side of the chin strap?
I
Oh,
don't. Sorry, go.
you know what it might be? Today we were messing with, the bottom player, the top player is just trying to maintain, keep you on your hands, keep you down. Bottom player in that turtle front headlock position is trying to just break connections and stand up. And one way of doing that is that side with the chin strap. That's the side that's so easy to like sit
Mm,
out on. And so I wonder if you're trying to pull them into that side with the chin strap, you're just giving them the momentum to sit out, maybe.
maybe.
I don't
Um,
know.
usually, usually the, like, peek out thing actually happens on the other side.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but, like, the chin strap can be more of like a yeah, you can kind of, like, grab their elbow and, like, kinda pull it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, I need to stop saying "if that makes sense." I said that so much. One, it was so annoying listening to. Um,
That's the fun of podcasting. It forces you
yeah.
to catch all our verbal ticks.
But, yeah, I'm not too sure as to why. Maybe it is, like, you're making this side of their body really heavy, so, they can't do, like, that peek out type motion.
Mhm.
Um, but, yeah, you can see here, like, again, he's just, like, sagging everything down to that side, and
Yeah.
then it quickly leads to a go behind after he breaks him down, you know?
Yeah.
But it seems like a common theme amongst, like, wrestlers and, jiu-jitsu people, um, that you're, like, just sagging their weight really heavy onto your, like, overhook side, but I'm not
Gotcha.
too sure as to why.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, the peak out I feel like is a whole separate rabbit hole because I've been trying it on both sides and I haven't figured out which side's the right side clearly. I just like spam it on either side. So,
Gotcha.
but anyway, okay, so yeah, I guess first battle is the attacker is trying to break them down, not allow them to build height and break away.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And then, like, ideally, you can break them from their hand down to their elbow kinda thing and,
Mhm.
just get them closer and closer to the mat.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
And then from there is the dilemma you're trying to put them in these front headlock submissions, the guillotine, Anaconda, Darce type situations, or the go behind. Is that kind of their two paths as the attacker?
I think so, yeah. And, kind of okay, so let me see if I could find some other examples. Um, but, like, once we get them broken down, like, basically, I've been paying a lot of attention to what foot they put up because they're probably not gonna stay on their knees, they're probably gonna try and start building base, you know? So it's like, what foot are they gonna build up to start building their base with? And basically, if they put their foot up on the side of the overhook arm,
Hmm.
it's going to make it hard for us to go behind. So now we're starting to look to threaten submissions. We're starting to look to threaten breaking them down further to the mat, things like this. Um, and if we're trying to break them down to the mat, we're not going to be able to break them down like towards the camera because their foot is here.
Yeah.
So our breakdowns are going to come to this far side over here. So you can see Giancarlo is going to look to go cradle and then break them down to the far hip. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Um, see if this happens. Um, yeah. So he goes like head tuck. So like when um he goes front headlock, dude puts his foot up on that side.
Yeah.
I think this one a little bigger. and then he tucks his head in the armpit and then uses it to go
Oh, wow.
behind. But yeah, you can see like the head tuck, dude had this foot on the ground initially,
Mhm.
and then he's trying to stand up, but the head tuck makes it so hard for him to keep this leg on the mat. So
Mm.
you can see he drops down to that knee. So now he's forced into the opposite posture where now this foot, far foot's on the mat, and now this guy can go behind. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. So if you're going like head tuck, I think you do it uh like with the goal of getting their far foot. Like on the mat, so you can go behind, or you could do like an Olympic roll type thing where you go head tuck and roll them over here. But it's going to be hard to roll them if this foot is still on the mat.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, does that make sense? Holy fuck. Um, so yeah, I think see if I have any other examples here. Yeah, it's another cradle example.
I like that cradle move. So for those who can't see, if I have the attacker and I have someone in the front headlock position and I've got that chin strap and that overhook, um, the side of the overhook, if they start to put their knee up, their foot on the ground, you could just snatch behind their leg and start to cradle them and then break them down to the far hip. That's really
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. And I think the idea behind it is their other foot is not on the mat, which means they're vulnerable to getting broken down to that far side. And this is just a way to like make them stay in that posture and then break them down over
Mhm.
that far hip. And then this would be like another example of doing it. Like, so it's the same posture this defensive person is taking, where their foot is up on the side of the overhook. So Cole is not going to try and break him down to that side. He's going to try and break him down to the side of his chin strap because
Yeah,
his base is really compromised here. So they roll to that side.
right.
So I think it's pretty important to just understand like the limitations of the posture that the person decides to take, and then try to exploit those limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So then, what if they're putting instead of putting their foot up on the side of the overhook, what if they're putting their foot up on the other side?
Right. So if they put their foot up on the side of the chin strap, um, now I think this is where like go behind start to become easier because their foot's not up on that side of your overhook. So now you can easily start to go behind. Um, so I think it's more risky to start going into submissions when they put their foot up on that side. Um, because like they can like pretty easily sit to guard and things like this. So it's gonna be like more of a race. Um, so yeah, this is kind of the framework that I've been working. But also, if they put their foot up on the side of your chin strap, you could go like the head tuck, like Olympic roll type thing is pretty good because their base is compromised on that side, so you can roll them pretty good
Mhm.
um, that way. And yeah, I think I might make a little like video about this. Maybe I'll try and make it and then put it out like over this one. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like a video meaning like me doing it just to like, give some visuals.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of the way I tend to go about it. Like if they put their foot up on the side of my overhook, I'm thinking like submissions. And if they put their foot up on the side of my chin strap, I'm thinking like primarily go behinds or like head tuck or head in the hole is what wrestlers call it, and then like Olympic roll type stuff.
Yeah. Dang, I'm realizing right now, this might seem super obvious to those to jujitsu practitioners, but hey, I'm still a white belt, okay. But so when you have that, when you're the attacker, you're in front headlock, chin strap overhook. I'm realizing now the go behind is always in the direction of that overhook because you're already starting to beat the elbow on that side. Versus
Generally,
this,
yeah.
yeah, the other side with the chin strap, they could just pop their arm up, and now their arm block is in the way of you going behind that
Yeah.
side. And then as their legs come up on either side, it opens up opportunities to submit here or go behind there or cradle
Right.
here. Yeah,
Right.
that's cool.
And if they
What if
build up to both, this is where it's like you got to force them down to one. And if they build up to both, I really like the head tuck, like we were talking about previously, because the head tuck just like puts so much pressure on them. And
what is the head tuck exactly?
like
Because I think we saw it in that one a little bit. Is this similar to, when you have them completely broken down and now you're gonna attack this anaconda thing and you're breaking their elbow in and you tuck your head behind their elbow and you
Yep,
gator roll kind of? Is it similar to that?
exactly. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Like head in the armpit, head in the hole, um, this type of thing,
Yeah.
is what people refer to it as. So, like, you're talking about this right here. Um, I have it as hashtag head tuck,
Okay.
but this would be like a head tuck into an Olympic roll, where you do like tuck your head kind of in their armpit, and then you just roll them through.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah,
And what's the purpose of the head tuck? Is it to
I
just keep breaking their elbow in?
yes, I think it makes their elbow like come more towards the center.
Mm,
And I also think it makes it hard for them to keep weight like back towards their feet. So as your head's getting behind their armpit, you're like driving more weight onto their hands.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and I think that's what I was doing wrong before with the anaconda is, where you're in front headlock as the attacker and then you connect your hands and then you try to close your elbow to like collapse their elbow.
Yep.
I think I wasn't reinforcing it with my head and driving
Mhm.
all that weight down to hit the gator roll. I would just want to like force this collapse and make them turn, and they just weren't turning. They're
Right.
just sitting there with their arm across their face or their neck, but no real pressure to get them to their back to the mat. Does that make sense?
Does make perfect sense. I know it's a bad habit.
We just need to find alternative ways of saying if that makes sense.
I know we got to brainstorm this. Um, have you heard of the Schultz choke?
No.
So basically, it's like when they want. So basically, you go into this where is it at? Like this type of position where you
Mhm.
connect your hands and you're putting pressure towards that Olympic roll type motion,
Yeah.
and they don't want to roll. Then they they go to sleep. Pretty much
Oh,
is
really?
yeah. So you're here,
What?
your head's in the armpit, you're choking them, and this actually puts him to sleep in
What?
the
That's
UFC.
crazy. So you're using the head tuck and that anaconda pressure of collapsing the elbow to to choke them even before they go to their back.
Right. So it's like either you're gonna roll or you're gonna go to sleep. So
That's
it should be like enough pressure to where they're like, I'm gonna roll to alleviate the pressure of this strangle. That's the effect that you're like ideally trying to create.
yeah, gotcha.
Mhm. Yeah.
How about finishing the anaconda in the Darce now?
Yeah.
I
Uh,
the problem I'm running into is a lot of times, let's say I get them to the back, like did all the right things, and now I'm in that Darce, or let's start with the anaconda. Now I'm in that anaconda grip. Actually, I don't even know what the problem is. I feel like a lot of times when I go for the Darce or the anaconda, both times I'm just cranking their neck a lot
mm,
and not making it tight enough. It might be because I have such long arms that it's easy for me to get the grip,
mm,
and I take that for granted when I should be deeper, probably. And
mm,
that might be the problem. But I also don't have all the right cues, I think. I'm not sure which way to pull, which way to squeeze.
right. There's a lot of variables. It's hard to like tell without like watching you.
Yeah.
Um, but like in general, I think a good cue is like um ideally the like so if you're grabbing your bicep and the support arm is here, ideally like the higher you can get it up on their shoulder, as opposed to like lower back, the better it would be. Um, and I focused on this for a long time, and I think it was like decent results. But recently, I actually put I put Mike to sleep, um, and the way it happened was we were in that kind of inverted front headlock position, and I had his arm trapped with my leg, and I had my grip, but he was grabbing my support arm, so I couldn't bring it behind his back. So I saw this from Lachlan Giles. I thought it was quite interesting. Where with the support arm, he turns his hand like palm down, so you can grab the back of your tricep like this, And he basically grip fights in that way. So when they're grabbing your arm, you try and grip their wrist like this and push it away from you so you can grab like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now I have like a really deep bite, and Mike just kept grabbing my wrist and I couldn't break it. He's so much bigger than me. I couldn't break his grip, and I was just trying to figure out a way to break it, and then he went to sleep. So it was like it was super weird. Um so that made me rethink the idea of like the support arm being up by the shoulder is like a very critical component of it because it wasn't even behind his back and he went to sleep. So yeah, I just to give you some like general advice, would be like Brandon here. You could type in like finishing mechanics and then like the submission that you want and get some general ideas. But Brandon says elbows in and down, so you're like pinching your elbows and you're bringing them down. Um, and then hips in, so you're trying to like bring your hips like closer to their hips, kind of thing. He brings his head back, which I think is kind of an interesting cue,
Mm.
and then you squeeze. Um, Danaher talks about creating that like T position where you're kind of like at a perpendicular angle when you're trying to finish the anaconda. Um, and then just kind of as a general rule, when you're finishing submissions, you want your hips working towards their hips. Yeah, the kind of classic example of this actually is, let's see if I can find it.
I remember Greg talking about that, getting your hips
Exactly.
closer to their hips when in guillotines as well. Um, the big takeaway I got from Greg's combo was the elbow position, but we can talk about
Yeah.
that in a bit.
Yeah. So like basically what Greg was talking about is Joseph's hips right now, they're kind of facing his opponent's head and not facing his opponent's hips. So when they fall and the hips still face the head, the opponent's able to build height easily. And now you have to fight posture, right? So the idea would be the classic Gordon Ryan S mount armbar. Oh, where Gordon is here, and when he falls off of S mount, his hips turn towards the hips of his opponent, not towards the head. And because of this, it makes it he has to roll through before he can start building height. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if your hips face the head, the person can build their posture much better than if your hips face their hips. And I think like Greg was talking about this being a very common theme amongst submissions in general. So for anacondas, darces, you're always trying to create situations where your hips are running towards their hips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's actually this very cool transition. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, this one. It's quite cool. Um, this is in one of my previous videos. But again, you can see like the ideas we're talking about here. So initially, dude has far foot up, right? He switches. Well, me commenting on something else because I didn't know this at the time. He switches for this foot to come up, and then that allows dude here to roll and break him down over the other shoulder.
Yeah.
And then he starts chasing the hip to hip kind of connection to finish a guillotine.
Right.
But then he ends up shelving the arm as he's chasing that hip to hip connection. So as they turn, oh, me talking about something else, as they turn, he ends up finishing that seated katagatami type thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it kind of comes off the idea that you're chasing that hip to hip connection, and then you can upgrade to different things. Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. So inversely, as a defender, you're getting your hips away from their hips as much as possible and trying to open up
exactly,
this space, and they're just trying to tighten and close this space.
exactly. Yeah. So like, there's this classic B team video. We go Darce escape. Let me share my screen again so you can see it. Darce escape. What do I want to search for? Yeah. So from here, you're trying to like, you see the distance between the hips, and you're trying
Yeah.
to like expand your chest, make it hard for them to get the grip. Like
Mhm.
you're just trying to create separation in your
Mhm.
hips. And as they're trying to follow, you're like posting on their legs, making it hard for them to follow you. See if we could find a better example of this.
Right, Nikki's trying to get his
Posting
hips
on the leg.
closer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And obviously that's not comfortable. Like it's a squeeze, but it's not like putting you to sleep.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe there's a crank going on probably, but
yeah. Yeah. But that's the general idea of like the hip to hip type
yeah,
connection you're trying to seek as the attacker and deny as the defender.
right. I think my focus of attention during Anacondas and Darce is getting their elbow to collapse more. A lot of times I use my knee to try to support in that. Um, but I have not been paying attention to the hip to hip at all. And so I think that alone will help, along with keeping the elbows tight and down. I don't think I've been doing that enough either because I'm probably being too nice and not wanting to crank it as much. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
the
The
hip
other
to hip
thing,
is good.
the other thing that so I asked our chat thing before we hopped on, but it basically talked about when to go for anacondas and when to go for darces. And Danaher talks about how if you're in front of the elbows, like basically like if the elbow's flared, you go guillotine. But if the elbow's able to get across the center, then you start to go anacondas or darces. And if you're in front of the elbows, like your lower body is still in front of the elbow, this would be a time where you go anaconda.
Yeah.
But if you start to create a situation where your lower body can start to get behind their elbows, come on, John. He's still talking about anacondas. Thank you. Where is it at? The Darce is performed when we're behind the elbow, and the anaconda is performed when we're still in front of the elbows. Maybe he just talks about it. He doesn't
Yeah,
show it. But
demonstrate.
yeah, either way, I think you get the idea. Like if you start to get behind the elbows with your lower body, then you can go Darce. But if you're still in front of the elbows, then it's a good idea to stick with anacondas and like
Interesting.
Olympic roll type motions.
Okay.
So I think it's a good cue.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it's like gospel though, because one of my favorite ways to get to an anaconda these days is by setting it up from a situation, yeah, like this. So you can see like this would be pretty much like a knee block, like your knee is in the armpit here. And if you are able to break them down to a hip, you're already transitioning to that like leg assist anaconda finish.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times we try and break them down, and then you're like, oh, now I need to get my leg to their elbow so we can finish. But if you get your knee behind their elbow first, then break them down, you get the leg assist finish like right away.
'Cause you're
So
there. Yeah, yeah.
yes, this has been like my favorite setup these days. I think there might be another example, but I'm not sure. I don't
Very
want to
cool.
spend too much time looking for it, but I think you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'm starting there's a lot of ideas here, I think, to play with. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask you, what about the nicotine? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
No,
dude, I
that's all
like
said.
this one. Have you messed with it at all?
I have not. But it
I
it
like it.
kind of relates to that idea I think you mentioned in one of your front headlock videos of following, right? Like, following them as they come up or something? Or I don't know.
Yeah, it, I've struggled as people have understood that I was looking for it. Um, it's harder to get their head like shelved on your chest if that made not if that makes sense. I'm not saying that anymore. But let me see if I can find an example.
Yeah.
But
Oh, you already have nicotine in the in
yeah,
the database? That's awesome.
I've only seen it done though in that one video from B Team. I
Okay.
haven't seen anyone do it in competition.
Yeah.
But you can see how Nikki's like trying to keep JB's head off the mat,
Yeah.
but he can't quite do it. So then he like has to build up and kind of reboot. Um, but you see how he's like trying to get his head off the mat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To make
But
room
this
to
this is
close the
basically the opposite. So instead of your hands connecting in the armpit
Mhm.
for an anaconda, your hands go and connect around the neck like a Darce.
Right.
But then you just need to figure out a way to shelf their head. Um, so this has worked tremendously well. Like when people didn't know I was doing it, it was like you roll, everyone thinks Anaconda. So like maybe you go Anaconda at first, they're fighting your grip, so you can't lock up the Anaconda. And then you switch to your hands like around their neck, and then try and shelf their head. But as people are getting better at running from this head shelf, it's proven to be difficult. Um,
It's
you
such
can
a
see,
crazy choke.
yeah,
It almost looks
basically,
like an upside down Darce or something.
that's exactly what it is.
Oh, it is? Okay, okay, that's what it is. Upside down Darce. What a weird. That's cool though.
So
Hey,
you can
any
see,
circle around the arm and the neck, right?
yeah, like this is very cool. How he's trying to keep his head shelved, right?
Yeah,
So he sits up and then he brings his knee behind the neck to keep his neck off the ground, and then he sits back down to finish.
it just tucks it under there.
Yeah.
Damn.
So now that his neck is off the mat, you're going to get a strong finish. But I've like pretty hard resistance to getting the head shelved. Like I can get the grip good, but yeah, I think the finishing mechanics are really strong. Like once you get it like locked with the head shelved, like I don't even feel like I'm squeezing at all. I was just kind of like sitting there and yeah, gotten like pretty easy taps from it, you know.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, the head shelf is tough.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to mess with that. That is a wild one. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that the whole invariance thing. All the head and arm strangles. You just get a bind around that anyway with whatever limbs, and eventually they're gonna go to sleep.
Right. And yeah, probably like another finishing mechanic that the head shelf thing kind of like is a good example of is you're trying to create the like head crunching down towards their chest type of effect in like Darce's, you know, and the nicotine type submission. So um yeah, that the head shelf achieves that. And then when they run away from the head shelf, it's hard to create that effect.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll switch it so you say that makes sense before I can say if that makes sense. That's a good idea.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Oh.
Yeah, we kind of spitballed a lot of ideas for the front headlock, but
I like it. Yeah, we'll put a link in this. Maybe we can link the YouTube video in the description. So like if people, some people are, I try my best to give you the audio description, but that's always hard over podcast. So hopefully we'll do more video and you can see what's going on for the parts that you get lost in.
yeah, for sure. Any other questions?
No, I think the takeaway for me is like I've been so single focused in terms of the finishing mechanics on the elbow that I think adding in the hips, getting hip
Mm,
to hip for all those submissions will help a ton. And then yeah, I never really paid attention to them building height on one leg versus the other
right,
and what that means. Because that's a big question from front of legs. Like when do you go for the choke versus go behind versus breaking him down? And
right.
so yeah, I think that answers some of that, or at least gives me some direction to play with. So
Yeah. And like as I'm watching more uh film and like wrestling and stuff, I'm trying to pay attention to more like stances and trying to see like is there a trend like when you have the same stance as your opponent tends to lead to more like this type of stuff. If you have opposite stances, it tend to lead more to this type of stuff. So I think it's kind of an overlooked thing where you're just like, oh, I do X from the front headlock. And it's like, okay, well, like what type of posture? And it also like gives you better questions that you can ask, like more directed questions. Like I'm struggling to deal with this type of posture. How do I destabilize them when they are resisting with this type of posture? Um, yeah,
yeah, because that as the defender of front headlock, like if they're trying to go behind, you're often trying to square up with them. There's this like rotation problem going on. And so one way to solve the rotation problem as a defender is to put your leg up. But then another way is putting that arm up or trying to come up on singles or even doubles, which we haven't talked about. Maybe that could be a whole separate episode here, but that's just like presenting more problems for the attacker. It's kind of interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
posture.
Yes, sir. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Jake. As always, allowing me to learn in public, and hopefully other people can get something alongside of us. So,
Of
yeah,
course. All right. Later,
cool,
Josh.
cool. Yeah, see ya.